Hello, this is Steve Orwell, and today we want to discuss world's problems using my partner, using my partner as ChatGPT. So now I'm going to ask ChatGPT about the questions we've been talking about, how to strengthen global politics. Um, how do we prevent global politics?
I think you meant to ask how to improve or strengthen global politics rather than prevent it. Improving global politics involves fostering dialogue, promoting cooperation, and encouraging nations to work together on common goals. This can be achieved through international institutions, diplomatic efforts, and building trust among nations. It's a complex and ongoing process that requires continuous effort and commitment from world leaders and citizens alike.
Okay, let's now talk about conflict resolution. So, what are the three tenets to look for when you want to resolve conflict?
Um, Let me think. When resolving conflicts, some key things to look for include understanding the underlying issues and interests of all parties, communicating effectively and actively, listening to each other, and finding mutually beneficial solutions. It's also important to stay calm, remain open minded, and focus on finding a resolution that works for everyone. By taking these approaches, you can build trust and work towards a positive outcome.
And so, using those tenets, I think how can we approach global politics to where now we make it we have a peaceful resolution of conflict in all the nations.
That's a really great question. Approaching global politics with a focus on peaceful conflict resolution involves promoting dialogue, empathy, and cooperation among nations by prioritizing mutual understanding, respecting diverse perspectives, and seeking common ground. Countries can work together to address global challenges and resolve conflicts peacefully. This requires strong international institutions, diplomatic efforts, and a commitment to nonviolent conflict resolution. By working together, nations can build a more peaceful and stable world.
Although that has not been the case, because now we've mentioned institutions, we have the League of not United Nations, which have been forefront in trying to resolve the conflict. But what has United Nations done so far in terms of the geopolitical geopolitical presence, is geopolitical presence in Israel and Palestine?
Hmm, Great question. The United Nations has taken steps to address the Israeli Palestinian conflict, particularly through the General Assembly. Recently, it voted overwhelmingly to demand Israel end its unlawful presence in the occupied Palestinian territory. The Assembly called for Israel to withdraw its military forces, cease settlement activity, evacuate settlers, and dismantle the separation wall. It also urged member states to comply with international law and take concrete steps to address Israel's occupation.
So those looks like it was supposed to do list. I feel like that was not part of is not a good resolution method, because it's basically telling Israel and Palestine, now this is the to do list and you have to do it. So I don't think that's the best part of conflict resolution.
You're right. Simply issuing directives may not be the most effective way to resolve conflicts. Conflict resolution often requires a more nuanced approach, taking into account the concerns, needs, and perspectives of all parties involved. A more collaborative approach that fosters dialogue, mutual understanding, and creative problem solving might be more effective in finding a lasting resolution to the Israeli Palestinian conflict.
Yes, that you're right there. And because we know what happened when the Germany the Wilson's 14 points where the German were required to do reparation and all that. We know about part of the history. So um, other than having the annual meeting, what other stuff did the National United Nations do to ensure that is a follow-up on those terms that.
Let's see. It seems like you started to ask another question, but it got cut off. Go ahead and finish your thought. I'm listening.
No, I'm saying that United Nations gave like a checklist of stuff for this to Israel Palestine to act upon, but what was the follow-up? What are the United Nations doing to follow up on its activities?
The United Nations has various mechanisms to follow up on its activities and resolutions, including the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. For instance, the UN has special rapporteurs who monitor and report on the situation, and the Security Council reviews and assesses progress. The UN also works with relevant parties to provide support and guidance in implementing agreements and resolutions. These efforts aim to promote accountability and progress towards a peaceful resolution.
Yeah, that is correct. So all the nations, and what are some of the nations that are not? What are other nations that are not United Nations? What are other nations doing? What are other nations doing to help United Nations to carry out its duties?
Let's see. Other nations can support the United Nations in carrying out its duties by contributing to peacekeeping operations, providing financial support, and participating in diplomatic efforts. Some countries also offer humanitarian aid and technical assistance to help the UN address global challenges. By working together with the UN, nations can help promote peace, security, and development around. Multilateral cooperation is key to the UN's success.
Multilateral cooperation, that's a really good word. Do that extend it to economic? How? What is the United Nations standing in terms of its revenue or its total economic capability?
Let me see. The United States has a large and diverse economy with a significant impact on global trade and finance. In terms of revenue and economic capability, the U.S. has a substantial GDP driven by various sectors such as technology, services, finance, and manufacturing. The country plays a major role in international trade and is home to many multinational corporations. Its economic policies and performance can have far-reaching implications for the global economy.
Yes, but let's stick back to the conflict resolution as far as global politics is concerned. So now that let's go to how is United Nations intervening the Russia-US conflict?
The United Nations has been involved in various efforts to address tensions between Russia and the US, although its ability to conflicts between major powers. The UN has provided a platform for diplomatic discussions and negotiations, and its Secretary General has played a role in promoting dialogue and reducing tensions. The organization has also worked to address the humanitarian impacts of conflicts and promote peaceful resolution of disputes. However, the effectiveness of UN intervention can depend on the willingness of the parties involved to engage in diplomatic efforts and cooperate with the international community.
Yes, and what is the United Nations requiring or mandating a United Nations to do to fulfill its duties? Because I know there's shares or contribution. So I know United States is keen on each and individual nation's contribution on the peacekeeping. So how is that? What is United Nations doing to make sure that each member state or each member nation contribute evenly?
The United Nations relies on its member states to contribute financially, militarily, and through personnel to support its peacekeeping operations and other activities. The UN has a scale of assessments that determines each member state's financial contribution to the organization's budget and peacekeeping operations. The scale is based on a country's economic capacity and other factors. The UN also encourages member states to contribute troops, police, and equipment to peacekeeping operations, and it provides reimbursement to countries that contribute military personnel and equipment. The organization works to ensure that contributions are distributed fairly and that member states are held accountable for their commitments.
Yes, and is there I think you said about fines and fines imposed on members who don't comply. So how much in terms of money?
The United Nations can impose financial penalties or withhold funding from member states that don't comply with certain decisions or obligations. However, the specifics of these penalties can vary depending on the situation and the UN body involved. The UN relies on member states to fulfill their financial obligations, and countries that don't pay their assessed contributions can face consequences, such as losing voting rights. But the UN doesn't typically impose fines in the classical sense. Instead, it works to encourage compliance through diplomatic means.
Thank you so much, DTP.
You're welcome. It was great discussing various topics with you, from global politics to the United Nations role in conflict resolution. If you have more questions or want to explore other subjects, feel free to ask anytime.
Have a great day.
It seems like you started to say something, but it